13 colonies, Native Americans. Time travel made possible. Virginia, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine. The story of settling 13 colonies and merging two very different groups of people is what Hollywood scripts are made of. Intrigue, deception, heartache, triumph, sorrows, and endless plot twists. However, in this series, we will not only explore the reality of all of this, but also unearth some other facts about life hundreds of years ago as a country was explored, founded, and settled. Join Liber-Tea for this time travel series, where we journey back and discover how different life was compared to now, but also how much we all have in common too. Like, comment, subscribe, and share with everyone you think might like to time travel, and be part of this exclusive club where we are challenged with modern-day living from voices of the past. Early American history is oftentimes hard to follow. Not only is there a certain agenda often attached to the educational material disseminated today among students, but also it is often wrought with so many depressing details that it can overwhelm the average citizen. Quite possibly the worst cover-up in all of history, or at least one of the worst. But also, as always in human history, there are many warm, heroic stories of sacrifice, peacemaking, and all-out generosity from some of the most unusual places and points in time. The human spirit often shines the brightest in the darkest of times, and this is where much of our story begins. There are many ways to start this story because of the several different reasons for starting a new world. Money was one, expansion another, and yet another was religious persecution. Since this seems to be the most well-known of the reasons, let's start there as a jumping-off point. In the early 1600s, a small group of Puritans, members of a reform group who believed that ceremonies and traditions should be eliminated from religious services, felt themselves growing more and more distant from the Church of England. Strict penal laws and penalties caused a period of violent disturbances and unrest, which eventually brought about the Puritans to start looking for other opportunities to practice their beliefs in peace. Enter America. In 1607, the first colony was founded in Jamestown, Virginia, and then, in 1620, the Pilgrims founded Plymouth, Massachusetts, where the colonists thrived with the help of Native Americans, the original North Americans. But before we believe that all was peace and love, we must remember there were quite a few complications between the two groups. On the helpful, peaceful side, the most well-known help, of course, is the Native Americans showing their new neighbors how to work the land, plant seeds, grow corn, and basically survive throughout the coldest and harshest of conditions in the New World. For example, the Wampanoag Indians helped the new colony in Massachusetts, where Indian Chief Massasoit and Massachusetts Governor William Bradley signed a peace treaty that lasted more than 50 years and resulted in what North Americans now traditionally celebrate as Thanksgiving. Can you imagine the first meal spread in this vast land? It's a bit different than today, including a feast of deer meat, various wild fowl, although turkey may not have been among the first offerings, surprise, surprise, cod and bass, and a wide variety of corn harvested by Native Americans and resulted in the New England recipes such as cornbread and porridge. In 1621, Edward Winslow, an English leader, wrote home to a friend detailing this account. Our harvests being gotten in, our governor sent 4 men on fowling, that so we might, after a special manner, rejoice together after we had gathered the fruit of our labors. They 4 in one day killed as much fowl as, with a little help beside, served the company almost a week. At which time, amongst other recreations, we exercised our arms, many of the Indians coming amongst us, and among the rest, their greatest king, Massasoit, with some 90 men, whom for 3 days we entertained and feasted, and they went out and killed 5 deer, which they brought to the plantation and bestowed on our governor, and upon the captain and others. However, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows between them. Much of the diplomacy and goodwill would soon be replaced with resistance from the Indians for the New World Europeans to gain more and more land, taking more and more control of their territory. new, deadly diseases were introduced into the Native Americans' lives, such as smallpox, measles, and cholera, having devastating effects that yielded more deaths than the Black Plague in Europe during the 14th century. There were also slave trade problems, in that the British colonists often used Native American war captives as slaves and forced labor to cultivate tobacco, rice, and indigo. Native Americans were often grouped in with the start of the African slave trade. From the horrific words written by the Virginia General Assembly defining slavery in 1705, all servants imported and brought into the country who were not Christians in their native land shall be accounted and be slaves. All Negro, mulatto, commonly known as mixed race people, such as Europeans with Africans, and Indian slaves within this dominion shall be held to be real estate. If any slave resists, his master correcting such slave, and shall happen to be killed in such correction, the master shall be free of all punishment, as if such accident never happened. There are so little words to describe these tragic events that lay the foundation of the United States. It is well known that during the next years, the colonists would be quite prolific. Economic opportunities, particularly in the description of land ownership, were considered numerous, and migration from the Europeans and other areas around the world quickly increased. In these days, word got around fast. These areas were viewed as the land of promise, and many leaders in foreign lands were offering large incentives and rewards for adventurers who would brave the ocean to find and establish new areas as representing their respective countries. In addition, there were people sent against their will to America, slaves being among the greatest population. However, there were also convicts and political prisoners banished too. With every generation, the American population doubled. The next colony, added to the first 13 colonies, was New Hampshire. Under the authority of an English land grant, Captain John Mason, along with several other fish merchants from London, were sent to establish a fishing colony, now known as New Hampshire. It is recorded that New Hampshire's beginning was not brought about from religious persecution, but was planned out of much care and great interest from the English Crown and Parliament. They not only wanted a colonization project, but more importantly, they wanted to provide safe harbors for ships and provisions. Free land was gratuitously handed out. However, there was only one important condition always attached, that it remain always subject to English sovereignty. And so it remained this way until the Revolutionary War. Next up is the most upper state bordering Quebec and New Hampshire in Canada, Maine, which is most popular for its rocky coastline and the leading producer in the U.S. for blueberries and lobster. What a combination! A less popular well-known fact is that these newly established colonists, led by George Popham, founded Maine the same year as Jamestown, Virginia, was founded. However, they were so beaten by the harsh climates and left leaderless after Popham died. Defeated this time by such hardships, the colonists returned to England a year later, which resulted in Jamestown being written as the first permanent colony in North America. Great modern-day author Stuart Stafford wrote about the colonization of the United States in the beginning years. In the vastness of the United States of America, the island nation Britain found the perfect vessel into which to pour its continental-sized hubris and ambition. Next, we'll explore more of the colonies and the diverse ways they were formed and engineered. We'll delve deeper into the role of Native Americans, their victories and defeats, as the true stories ebb and flow over the next years. And we'll discover exactly why the foundation of building one of the biggest world powers in the world today grew out of extreme adversity, catastrophe, and misfortune, but all the while triumphing in the end. Join us next time for more Liber-Tea. Like, subscribe, comment, and share this and other videos. Be sure to follow along the conversations and add your voice to the growing audience who enjoy knowing a bit more about who we are and where we came from, as Liber-Tea continues to analyze and probe deeper into the subjects most talked about today.